Your Daily 180, 180 seconds of pure Bible study.
There's a way that's right and cannot be wrong. That's the essence of Proverbs chapter 14, verse number 12. There's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. We don't want to follow the way of death. Let's follow the right way. Well, what about the designation of the church that we read about in the Bible? Regarding the way the church is designated, there's a way that's right and cannot be wrong. It's rather interesting when we think about the way various religious groups are designated. And I don't mean to be harsh in any way, but I just want you to think about this. Episcopal, Lutheran. It's rather interesting. Luther begged his followers not to call themselves after him. He realized that was wrong. Think about this Church of New Beginnings. What's that mean? Who's that belong to? Living Waters Family Church. You see, it's rather interesting. Paul would say in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse number 12, "Now I say this, that each one of you says, I am of Paul, or I am of Apollos, I am of Cephas, or I am of Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Or were you baptized in the name of Paul?" What's he saying? We need to be designated by the one who saved us. In Romans chapter 16, verse 16, we find these words, "The churches of Christ salute you," or "the churches of Christ greet you." It's a designation. That's not the only scriptural designation, but it shows that we belong to Jesus. When you see the sign that says Church of Christ, that's really not so much a title as it is a description of a relationship. And we need to understand it that way. Here's a good verse that demonstrates that. In 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse number 15, Paul says, "But if I am delayed, I write so that you may know how you ought to conduct yourself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and the ground of truth." You see, the house of God, that's a scriptural designation. And why would that be? Well, think about Acts 20 and verse 28. He tells those elders to shepherd the church of God, which he purchased with his own blood. It belongs to God. God the Son purchased the church. In Matthew chapter 16 and verse 18, he said, "I will build my church." The church belongs to Jesus. Why come up with some man-made name? You see, regarding the designation of the church, there is a way that is right and cannot be wrong.